Nourish My Soul is proud to present to you another episode of Radicle Thursdays, where young people are interviewing other young people around the world and amplifying their voices to make radical change in their communities. A radicle is the main root that emerges from a seed embryo, bringing all the nutrients that that seed needs to grow and flourish into the plant that it is meant to be. That is our role here at Nourish My Soul. We are hoping that we are planting the seeds and we are spreading that inspiration to each and every one of you. We all need a little extra hope right now. We need some inspiration, and young people are rising up to the occasion and they are making this world everything that they envision it can be. So let's listen in and find out what these young people are up to now. Join us on this Radical Thursday.
Welcome back to Radical Thursdays. This is another very exciting episode, and an organization that is similar to From the Ground Up. So I hope you guys enjoy this episode. And yes.
So our guest today is Alexander from Green Village Initiative. He's an operations assistant. So who are you, and tell us a little about yourself.
So who am I? So my name's Alex Morales, from Monroe, Connecticut. Graduated from Sacred Heart in 2017. I was a sociology major. Right now, I'm the operations assistant for Green Village Initiative. I started working with GVI back in May of this year. May 1st was my first day. Before that, I was a substitute teacher for 3 years, K through 12. And right now, my position, I would say I'm a mostly behind the scenes person. I do pretty much scheduling, coordinate. I schedule volunteer events. I just coordinated our Harvest Fest, which was a 5-day virtual event, 5 days of workshops, a game night, a live concert. It was across, we used YouTube to do video premieres for workshops. We also used Facebook Live, Zoom for Q&As. And then it culminated with a family day, like a little Halloween substitute event on Saturday and Halloween. So that's what I do. My goal really is to make sure that the people who are working in the farm never have to stop what they're doing in order to have what they need. If a community garden manager reaches out to me and says, I need to clean up this garden, can you get volunteers? I'll take care of sending out mail blast, emails, giving them all the information they need, location, scheduling what supplies are needed, and then so when the day comes, they're ready to show up. The volunteers are there; they already know what they're going to be doing. And then just other little like smaller behind the scene things, like just maybe helping out with a contract for leasing a printer, or more boring things like numbers related, entering donor information, donor outreach, which is not boring. I do enjoy that quite a bit. And yeah, it's a new position, so I'm kind of making it as I go. Like the responsibilities are expanding the more they trust me. So yeah, that's what I do for Green Village Initiative. And how I found out, it was just I was actually, my mom, who was a Bridgeport resident herself. She grew up in Bridgeport. I was just driving her crazy, kind of trying to help me find volunteer opportunities, and she found GVI. It was right in the winter, and I thought, there's no way they're gonna have a volunteer opportunity for me in the winter for an agriculture organization. But it was right in time for their Christmas tree lighting. It was like hailing and freezing cold that night, but I went out and helped and had a really great time. Then a few months later, I applied for the job, and I just feel very lucky to have this opportunity to put any energy I have into being able to help people make a difference. I honestly like thinking about like how I felt before and how I'd be feeling now, like if I did not have an outlet to put any energy I have to try and make change or any knowledge I have, I can't even imagine what it'd be like to not have this ability to know I can have a job that is actively working towards social improvement.
That's so cool. So you said you were a sociology major, and you're a substitute teacher. Do you Were there any skills that you learned either while you were in college, while you were teaching, that you apply to your job now?
I mean, I think like sociology was like I had kind of like a general interest in like politics and like just kind of social justice issues even before college, but sociology is where like I learned more about different theories, theorists, like frameworks of ideologies. Like, so I was my freshman year was 2013, 2014, and like I was like pretty interested in politics and socials, but like I really didn't. I had like no idea really what feminism was. There were so many like influential people and thinkers that I was able to learn about their ideologies and like their ways of thinking that I just had no idea about. And so it provided me with like this framework, like this way to think about things and analyze them, um, introduced me to different ways of thinking. And then one thing that I did a lot of research and study in that field, in that position, uh, or studying that degree, and that definitely has helped prepare me for this job, just from a mindset, like from a workload standpoint. And then substitute teaching, I mean, like so I was substitute teaching in Monroe and Trumbull. I would work in sometimes I would most often work in the special ed field or in alternative schools, and it was just it was I don't know. I think I always had compassion, but it just teaches you like patience. You just get such a joy out of working with certain kids, and I don't know. I think that was probably my introduction to maybe like I did like a little volunteering in college, and I did work at the Kennedy Center while in college, but just kind of working with certain kids, seeing like the impact I could make on them. That was like my first taste of like a long term like experience of being able to help someone or provide some kind of uplifting, maybe not uplifting, maybe that's overselling myself, but just to like to make them feel better. And so that was like a very good feeling. And so I think that definitely, I think that definitely influenced what kind of jobs I would be looking for, because I didn't go to school to become a teacher. I didn't even. I mean, I certain parts I very much enjoyed substitute teaching, but to know that I'm done with substitute teaching is like a great feeling also. Uh, so I think I was just looking for an area where I felt like I could continue to help make people's lives better in any way possible, really.
Yeah, I'm majoring in early childhood special ed.
Mhm.
And I would say one of the reasons as to why I got into it was definitely simply just to help kids like just receive better education,
Mhm.
not that isn't minimized or focused around their special need, but to receive the same quality education as like gen ed.
Mhm.
But yeah, I completely agree with that.
Yeah.
Bella, do you have any questions? Go ahead.
Yeah. Food justice is a pretty niche form of activism, I would say. It's not mainstream, I guess. So outside of your mom, like kind of introducing you to the organization, what kind of pushed you to go into the food activism side of it?
So I've definitely learned more about food justice since I've started working for GVI, but even beforehand, like I think something that I was probably the most passionate about, or something that could make my blood boil the most, was when people would speak down or disrespect the idea of receiving welfare or food stamps, as if like it makes you kind of like they very much look down on it. They think like, oh, they're stealing from us in some way. And having a mom that grew up on like uh, welfare, food stamps, like, and her firsthand having this experience of people talking about how it's cheating the system, how they're getting so much money, they're lazy, when she knows herself how little assistance it actually is, and how awful it can feel to not know where your next meal is coming from, or to just not have like a good diet, not be able to go out and get groceries you want, or to have to settle for unhealthier food. Because I always thought about it like I think there's just many people in a certain environment. If you don't grow up in an environment where you yourself are maybe using, well, are on welfare, getting food stamps, some kind of government assistance, if you're not yourself growing up on that, you probably exactly just my mom. It's like always had this like I probably had this maybe more insight than people I was growing up around, and it just it would really feel like if anyone was disrespecting it, it just felt like you just don't understand. And so because so many people don't understand, this situation, and they don't think like when you really think about it, it's food. Like it is what you need to just feel good throughout the day. If you're older, it could mean the difference between like the energy for a good day or a bad day. If you're young, you need to grow, you need to focus in school. If you're an adult, like you just need that energy to work. And then just not even for anything else, like there just shouldn't be people not having food. Like it's just a very baseline. There's not even really a justification needed for it. And so I always had like this just passion about uh, wanting to wanting to help people that I know that like just don't have the money and the access to food. Because I just feel like I have this knowledge, like not as a firsthand experience, but just knowing like how terrible it can be, and like that there may not be a lot of help that they're getting, and they're so willing to work to get food or travel. Like there's only really one like major grocer in Bridgeport, and it's in the north end, and so if you live like pretty far away from it, is it really convenient for you to go to it after a day of work if you don't have a car to take the bus, lug a bunch of groceries back and forth? Is it cheaper than getting health and unhealthy food? Even if the healthy food's cheap, it's never cheaper than the unhealthy food. Uh, so just kind of knowing and thinking about all these things, and like having this frustration and feeling like there was nothing like, so before this job, I had like all these feelings and knowledge, and there's like I could do food drives, but there was no consistent way to really for me to feel like I was helping. And then seeing GVI, knowing it's providing food to young people, to people at the farmers markets, uh, it just seemed like a really perfect fit for
I really liked how you mentioned it, like it plays a different role in all ages of life and all stages of life, because we always say like food impacts everything, which we kind of knew that, but just the way that you explained it, I was like, yeah, food literally impacts everything and everyone no matter what. And it was just I just thought of it in a new way. So I thought that was really cool. But one thing that we did as from the ground up was the snap challenge. It was around a year ago, maybe. Yeah, I would say around a year ago. And basically we tried living a week with like based off of the income that the government gives people who are on food stamps. And it was so incredibly hard. Like I and how you like people say, oh, they're stealing money. Like, no, it is so difficult. Like to the level, like we did not, like we knew it was going to be hard, but I don't think we ever expected it to be as hard as it was. And just like the lack of energy because you're not eating as nutritious food as you can,
me. Mm-hmm.
and just having to worry about like portioning food and stuff like that. It was like a really big eye opener for us.
And if you grow up in an environment like that where you're not getting access to a lot of nutrients, you naturally become nutrient deficient. And for me, privileged enough to grow up in an environment where I had access to lots of nutrients, but I have health situations that cause me to be nutrient deficient. So going on that challenge and having already been nutrient deficient, it was absolute hell. Like I already naturally don't have as much energy as I'm supposed to. And when you don't have access to something that's, theoretically a basic human right, it really like affects your ability to perform at the level that you need to either work or go to school and get an education and to progress your life in a positive manner.
Yeah, I think that's well said. And yeah, access is the key, because it's like, what is access? Like one grocery store 30 minutes away that's costs more than all the food sources around you. Is that really access? I don't really think so.
So, can you explain, like, what Green Village Initiative kind of focuses on, and if the urban agricultural plan kind of plays into that?
So Green Village Initiative, I mean, we have our four main like programs are our youth program, school gardens, community gardens, and then Reservoir Community Farm. And it was actually only like maybe like less than a month ago that our executive director, we just were having a team meeting. She was mentioning that like in other like comparable cities to Bridgeport, there's like separate organizations for each one of these things. But we're the primary for Bridgeport, and we're doing everything. So we do a lot. We do all the school gardens. We have 12 different community gardens. So how the master plan plays a role into that. I mean, we're always trying to envision like people being more. It's part of like our plan of basically just our larger plan, you could say, of just wanting people in Bridgeport to have the ability to be uh, dependent without having to worry that they have to save up a certain amount of money to get healthy food, or that healthy food's not even available to them. And so we want to just provide the opportunity, because we always want to make sure, like, all we can do is stand beside the people in the community. We can never expect like a certain level, not that we're not acceptable. You can't, like, your goal can't be just accepted. Your goal is just to help and provide opportunities. And so we want to provide opportunities for people to grow their own food, for people to have a place to buy food that's healthy and more affordable, a place to learn about growing, and also a place for people to give us knowledge that we may not have known of. There's a lot of immigrants in Bridgeport, and they may have grown up, on or adjacent to some kind of farmland, and they know about tips for gardening that none of us have known about. And so it's an opportunity for them to put their knowledge towards us. So that was what I would say towards that. And then, I mean, I know that's not specific towards the urban agriculture plan, but it's for identifying places in the cities that could be used for gardens. And we have every community garden plot is open. People can apply for a plot of land, grow all the food they want. We have our seedling giveaways for free. So it's just kind of a part of, you know, one thing uh, with land access for most people is because of how land has been distributed, or how land was stolen and not distributed. Most people like I think to a certain degree, farming has like a white rural face. And one thing we want to do with GVI is give people the opportunity to see and then experience themselves that, okay, I live in an urban area. I'm black, I'm Hispanic, uh, but I can still be a farmer. I still have the farming and gardening opportunities right here. Like, there's not, and that's especially key for like the school gardens, but just for people who didn't even know this opportunity existed. They probably, if you don't know about GVI, then I don't think you may believe that there is a farm and 12 community gardens throughout Bridgeport. So we want to give people this opportunity that they may not have even thought would have existed before.
Yeah, one thing that we learned about and we talked about, yeah, like the how farming kind of started with the minority groups, so with Blacks and with Hispanics, and with like within the West Indies and with Africa and stuff like that. And it's turned into a white rural thing, like you said. And so our town is very white and very rural and very farm heavy. And so we had a discussion one meeting just about kind of how farming was a part of people, like a part of their identity for so long, and it was kind of taken away from them because, like with slavery, like it now became this horrible thing that like I don't want to be associated with like farming or anything like that, or like working in the fields, because then that automatically kind of makes you seem poor versus no, you're like providing like healthy food and from the ground and everything like that. And so we took a trip over to Soulfire Farm up in New York, and it basically is just like they talk about kind of reestablishing that connection between minorities and with farming again, kind of how it started. And it was just really powerful because I mean, I've never been one to farm, but my mom grew up on a farm, and she loves it. My dad grew up with chickens, but my mom had like, they had cows, they had goats, they had like the whole 9 yards. So it was really just powerful hearing the stories about how important farming really is to people and how much it impacts their lives. And it's really awesome to see that like fire kind of coming back to people.
Also, it's really impressive that you guys have so many gardens, or community gardens rather, because what was it, like the first from the ground up group way back tried to do a community garden, and it requires like a ton of maintenance and community support, and not everybody is, it requires a lot to even happen really, and then to continue to happen and function at the level that it is. And I forgot where I was going with that. So, Kenya?
It is hard. Our community gardens program manager, sometimes part of her job is just driving around Bridgeport, like checking on the gardens and seeing like, okay, this one needs to be cleaned. And then she'll email me. And then it's like, all right, I'm off to the races trying to get volunteers. Because the last thing we want to do is like set up a garden and then it becomes like a mess. And then it's like an eyesore. It's like, that's not helping the community. So it, yeah, it definitely is a lot of work maintaining that.
Yeah, and in terms of urban farming, not a while back, but in the summer, Kenny and I and the rest of From the Ground Up had to listen to a podcast about this guy. What was his name, Kenya? Who got like arrested for gardening for urban farming? Yeah, because he was turning the sidewalks, or like the little piece of grass on each side of the sidewalks on the highways and such, into gardens, which was an interesting form of urban gardening, I thought, to kind of reclaim that like land that otherwise would go to waste for the community. But he got arrested a lot of times because of it, but just to show how difficult it is to actually accomplish and put forth, because you need all the permits and such.
I mean, food justice is like the first step of like, I feel like of social change, because it's, if you want people to be able to participate in protests, go out to vote, go to rallies, like do all these things, learn, like it's hard to do that on an empty stomach. Like it's ridiculous. We already do ask people to do that, but it's like ridiculous to ask people to do that. And then how can you ask someone to like really care about certain issues and learn about all these different things, educate themselves? They're just focusing on getting their food. They're just trying to work. They're just working through the day so they have enough money to get groceries. So when we can help alleviate that, that's like the first step of a greater social change. I mean, that's like in the 40s, like there was a communist uprising in Vietnam, and like the first thing they did was steal rice from the rice factories to give to the poor people, because they're like, before we get an uprising, we need to actually feed these people, because they're not going to care about learning our ideology if they're just trying to get food. So I'm not saying we're Vietnamese communists from the 40s, but I am saying that it is an essential part of social change, is to make sure the community is healthy.
Yeah, one thing that I remember back in psychology last year, yeah, we were talking about this is testing my memory, like the pyramid of basic needs, and the basic level, there's like 7 of them or something like that. but the most basic level is like shelter and food, basically. And so it's like all these things cannot happen without food. So I think like food justice is very important, but it also kind of makes me sad that it has to be a thing because it's such a basic need. Like the fact that people just don't have food is shocking to me, quite frankly.
Yeah, yeah, and then it's like you have to even obtain the food. It's like, uh, prove your worth, get a job, and then you can prove your worth and earn your food that way. And also, if you want it to be healthy, then you got to work extra hard. Otherwise, you can just get the cheap stuff. Unless you live in an area with no access to a grocery store, then it doesn't matter. So, the only way to like, you can't go into these situations thinking like they're just if you just solve a small part of the problem, it's just going to all resolve itself. You have to fight back against the injustice of putting people together in very tight housing and then not giving them opportunity to healthy food. And the only way to do that is to provide them with healthy food. I mean, part of the reason the grocery stores aren't accessible to so many people isn't because, or it is because there are so many people who live in very tight housing areas. If you know anything about affordable housing projects, they're not built like, they're just built to cram as many people into one area and collect their rent checks as possible. So, and then you don't even give them healthy food. So this whole system is a very unjust system, and so you have to do what you can to fight back against it, and then give the people the opportunity to themselves, like, not be dependent on like us just selling them food. We have to also give the opportunity to grow, to be able to grow the food, give them seeds so they can grow. I mean, one thing we're trying to work towards is, like, there was a Yale panel that me and another GVI employee, Catherine Lindsay, were at, and a point she brought up was, it's the Yale Center for Environmental Justice, and they're like, how can we help serve the community? And Catherine made the very good point of help Black and Brown farmers obtain land, because you can just keep giving. I know it's like the old proverb: give men a fish, feed him for a day, teach men to fish. Uh, he's set for life. But we can keep giving people food at low prices, or we can help them grow their own food, and then they don't need us. Like, as much as, like you were saying, you love food justice, but that it even exists. It's like, I love GVI, but the fact that it exists is like, proof of a problem.
Yeah, that goes into DC Central Kitchens. When we were down in DC, we talked with them for a long time, and their main, I guess, goal is to not exist, not have to exist. But yeah, like, you have to work with the individual so that they can grow, or provide them with the resources or skills rather, so that they can grow and they don't need you. I mean, it's as simple as that. If you don't do that and you don't provide skills, you kind of have a small like God complex going on, where you think you're enforcing that reliance when you don't need to. You shouldn't have to, at least.
Yeah, especially if you're an outside, that's there. We have like a fair amount of, like, in our youth program, the youth workshop people, not youth workshop, the youth work team is, they're all Bridgeport youth, and we have some, I believe we have some, we have some Bridgeport residents who work at GVI, and we have Bridgeport people who come in to volunteer, but we're still like, an outside organization. So we have to come in like, not like, we're coming in hovering above everyone to save the community. It's like, we're coming in to stand alongside you guys, like, fight the injustice that is your current, is your situation. So yeah, that's a good point. Don't want to have that God complex.
So, we were looking on your website and we saw that there's a lot of collaborations with different other organizations within Bridgeport. Um, so, like we saw, you guys work with Pinch of Salt and with Bridgeport Farmers Market. So, how does that collaboration kind of play out with what you guys do?
So pinch of salt is like a pretty like very nice and organic relationship. Like sometimes she may like be providing food for our youth program. Like she'll bring in some sandwiches for them, or she'll provide a workshop for us on like, she'll pick up some stuff from our farmers market, and then she'll this summer she gave a tutorial on just how to cook some different meals. And so that's like a pretty organic partnership we have. And then with the Bridgeport Farmers Market Collaborative, that's like, making sure that, we're all moving, together in like the decisions we make, like, making sure if you have WIC or SNAP or Bridgeport Bucks, you get double the value of that in tokens from the farmers market. So like that's like something that, is a Bridgeport farmers market. Like every Bridgeport farmers market's doing that thing. So you come to the GVI farmers market, $10 in Bridgeport Bucks, $20 worth of money to spend on vegetables. So that's how that collaboration goes. And then really any organization we collaborate with, we just want to make sure that credit is given to both sides. It's like we always thoroughly investigate, make sure that in any organization that we may be working with like matches up with us ideology wise. We've had people reach out and it seems all good, and then something might happen and we're like, oh, this organization does not line up with us. Yeah, any emails they get are going right into the trash. So uh I'm kidding, of course. I respond to all emails. So we always make sure that and this like all we there's so many good organizations in Connecticut, like and just in the Fairfield County, Bridgeport area. There's many good organizations that we've worked with. Make the Road in the past, who does great work with immigrants and refugees. Yeah, there's a lot.
Yeah, Belle and I were laughing when you said some organizations are not what they prove to be, because we talked briefly about this in our first podcast, but we took a trip to New Orleans with, well, we'll say the organization. It is what it is. Called One World Everybody Eats. And the premise of the conference was, well, we originally were going to go just to learn, but then they asked us to be panelists. So Bella, me, and one of our other friends all went thinking, oh, we're going to share what we're doing. They can share what they're doing. Like a big learning fest. Instead, it was the complete opposite. And everyone just everyone there were probably like 60 people there. Everyone was literally bragging about what they were doing and talking down on the same exact people that their organization claims to help. And so we went with the expectation to learn, and we did learn a lot, but it was kind of the complete opposite of what we shouldn't do. But it was just so eye-opening. We were like,
I feel like that was the first real interaction with performative activism, I guess, at least for our group. And to see that people don't always have the best intentions, I suppose, for people that they're serving. Sad, but it happens. But yeah, we kind of low-key do the same thing where we just right in the trash.
I mean, there's like a certain level of it's not even like it's like we feel personally offended. It's like, it would be disrespectful to our community or to other coworkers we have to work with certain organizations that are, not respecting certain things about us. So it's, we're not playing around. We're very serious about what we do. And I have a low, I don't want like any employee or coworker, anyone in the Bridgeport community to feel like, I'm not saying I'm a personal defender of anybody, but like it just drives me crazy when people try and disrespect Bridgeport or any certain community. And it's just like, that should be how everyone should feel. Like, you should never tolerate that. And so if we want to be helpful to the community. Like, we can't be having a sponsored event and then putting up a logo of an organization that, disrespects the community. That's not going to gain any respect from our own community. So that's why I always, and I think many of our team, we always keep in mind.
Yeah, we completely agree. So the pandemic, obviously, big issue, especially in Connecticut. I'm over here currently in Pennsylvania, trying to eventually come home in 2 weeks, and I don't really know what's going to happen because the governor, mayor, I don't know, Lamont keeps like narrowing restrictions. Anyways, but so the pandemic has obviously taken a toll on everyone's life. So how has it impacted GVI, and how have you guys kind of transitioned from like the old way to like this new way?
Well, I'm sorry you're stuck in Pennsylvania. Are you there counting the votes? Is that where you're?
Oh, it's a very my roommate and I love her to death. We're very opposite in our political views, but it's a PA is definitely very different experience during the election as Connecticut was, for sure. Yeah.
Okay. Good luck to you.
Thanks.
But how has it affected us? I mean, so one, I've only met my coworkers in person once. So like just from a GVI team wide, like, every meeting we have is like this on Zoom. Uh, the people who work in the farm obviously are still around each other. Uh, and I mean, how it's affected us, I think it's tough for me to say exactly because my first day was in May, so I only know working during the pandemic. Uh, I'm simultaneously surprised by how many volunteers we get because you can volunteer every Saturday with us at Reservoir Community Farm. It's like open. You just want to come in and volunteer, just come by between 10 a.m. 2 p.m. You can volunteer. So, and people will like reach out to me like for info. Like I'm the one. Like if you reach out to general GVI about anything, I'm the one who responds. So I'm always coordinating with volunteers, and I'm always surprised how many people are still coming in every Saturday, how many people are coming in for garden cleanups during the week. It's definitely affected us. Our youth program, we had to take less people for the youth work crew. I think we probably are getting less volunteers than average. Our Harvest Fest, that was a 5-day virtual event, and then one in-person day, which was like a very limited attendance day. Normally would be a just 1-day celebration event that would get 300 plus people. So, and even like the virtual events are great. And I think we're doing a solid job of like using our YouTube and our Instagram to still reach people. But I don't think there's the same. I think it's really tough to get that same level of community involvement because there's just not that like kind of just being, you can't just go person to person. There's not as many people walking by, maybe seeing it. Canvassing for an event is not like, it's not ineffective, but it's just not being done as much because there aren't really that many in-person events to really canvas for like that. Post a stick, a poster on the telephone pole about RSVPing to a Zoom event is not like, I don't think you're going to get many people that way. So I think it's made it tougher to connect with the community. I'm sure there's probably people that were more frequent at GVI than they, in previous years than they were able to this year, but we're planning, like we're hoping that just through social media, we'll be able to connect to enough people. We still post pretty frequently. I think people seem to like, we did workshop it like tutorial videos on YouTube for Harvest Fest, and people seem to like that. So we're going to continue doing just like shorter 4 to 5 minute tutorial videos as a way of connecting with people. But there's just no substitute for that in person. I mean, you're talking like for Harvest Fest, we would get crowds of 300. Like our Zoom and YouTube premiere videos, they're getting like at that moment when they're premiering, they get like 30 to 50 people. So it just pales in comparison to what we were getting before. But my hope is that I think no matter what, we were going to probably plan on doing this winter differently and just using it for more than just planning for the spring and summertime. And I think because of the pandemic, we're just going to be planning even more on how to still do outreach. I mean, we still have people in the school gardens. It was a little tougher, obviously, like for safety protocol at first, kind of coordinating this, but there's still our great food corps people are still going into the schools. So it has been tough and just community involved, us reaching the community, I would say.
Yeah, it's definitely been an interesting transition for us too, because of the nature, I guess, of food activism, you tend to be more in person, community oriented, and more, I guess, hands-on work. So we did a lot of community dinners where we get upwards of 100 or so people coming in and out, and we can't obviously do that anymore. So we've been trying to work around that, and trying to do that on Zoom unsuccessfully, for our youth activism program for From the Ground Up. In previous years, I guess I no longer am doing it, but a lot of the recruitment and I guess for that From the Ground Up was in person by word and getting it through that. And you can't really, it's hard to reach as many people as you would like on social media, even though it seems easier in theory. So we also have much more limited numbers on that. It's just an interesting shift, and probably this winter we'll probably end up changing things, but we've been doing a lot of cooking tutorials because for Junior Chef, that's where we teach kids how to, make nutritious meals and explore their taste buds. And that's usually in person too, but it's an interesting shift, especially in food activism.
Yeah. No, I mean, like we would ask people to RSVP for the Harvest Fest workshops, and I would get like 3 to 5 RSVPs, and then by the end of the night, the video had like 100 views. And so there's like this disconnect between like how many people are tuning in versus how many people like beforehand it seems like you're connecting with, but then like they're not gonna, just because someone's also on the Zoom or on the YouTube doesn't mean they're then gonna jump to the Zoom afterwards. So it's like people are watching, but you're not sure where. There's not like this way to track like who's there as a way of in person just seeing them. So yeah, it's definitely changed it quite a bit.
You guys are doing a lot like in the field, kind of like, for example, within your community. What is there any like advocacy or policies that are happening that you're kind of involved with or of that may like change some things?
I mean, on like a state level, I mean, I think just generally like, I mean, there should just be like a push to improve. Like, I don't know if it's on the table, but like in any regard, but there should be like a push to improve housing for residents of Bridgeport, because that's one of all, like food is also one of there's many first steps really, but like a lot of grocery stores don't set up in certain areas because they feel like the like housing areas surrounding them aren't really conducive to business. So you want to help. One way of helping people maybe get a grocer in their area is improve their housing a little bit. It's like this idea that like this is the only option for certain people, like is to all be living in one building, 100 people or however many. It's the only option. It's just, it's a little ridiculous. I mean, also, I don't think it is kind of mind blowing that the schools are. I personally don't feel like the schools should be open right now. I feel like it's especially endangering to as pretty much anything that happens. It's especially endangering to lower income people. And what you're going to have is schools that are already dealing with trouble that maybe they didn't have the funding that they need. uh, they're going to have to be dealing with this extra. You're having the difficulty of they don't want to cancel, but then if they do, then maybe people won't be able to provide. There's a lot of students rely on school for lunch. The state should 100% be providing lunches for people. The city, at the least, or the state should be providing lunch for people. So yeah, that's one thing, like pandemic related more than food justice related. I think that the school shouldn't be open because it's just not going to help. It's just going to hurt lower income people. Uh, Statewide or countrywide, uh, like in a broader sense, food justice related, like I'm definitely an advocate, or I'm definitely a believer in uh, reparations of some kind. But that's like broader than food justice. Just SNAP, welfare, WIC increases across the board. I think they give them 150 a month, and people think they're robbing them, so you might as well rob them. Just give them more money. People think that 150 a month is like living easy, so why not just give them money to live easy anyway? So that would be those would be the things I would say. I'm sorry, I don't have like a specific one in mind.
That's okay. Yeah, we learned about a lot of food justice, I guess more so laws being proposed.
Mm-hmm.
Too long ago for me to remember the specifics of them, but yeah, improvements for farmer conditions and their ability to work with major corporations that often rob them. With the affordable housing, having in urban areas, rooftop gardening would be huge for people so that they have even better access, and that's probably more local and statewide laws, I'm assuming. I don't think that could be done on a mass scale. But yeah, there's just small changes, I suppose, or improvements you could do to existing laws and whatnot.
Yeah, I also think one thing would be the achievement gap is absolutely absurd to me. Especially like Bridgeport is in Fairfield County, and like statewide, the achievement gap is already insane, but the achievement gap in between Bridgeport and like Fairfield is so unbelievably absurd. Like just like I remember when I found out that Bridgeport was in Fairfield County, I was like, where's where's the disconnect? Because everyone sees Fairfield County as like, oh my goodness, like and so then I think that kind of reputation that it has definitely takes away from people who are living in Bridgeport and who are struggling because they have this reputation of, oh no, you're fine, but like no, like we need assistance. And so I think the achievement gap and working on closing that countywide as well as statewide is also a really big political change that I think needs to, I personally, I mean, I'm not in politics, but I personally think that there could be a lot more work done on it than what's currently happening right now.
I mean, the schools need more money. Like Bridgeport schools need more money, like just straight up. They don't need more magnet schools. They don't need charter schools. Like all those do is just take away money from the existing schools. Like school choice doesn't have just give the money to the schools. Like that's really almost not all they need, but that would be huge. And it's just like one of those things. It's like, it seems obvious to everyone. It's like sitting in front of their face, like, oh, the schools are struggling. What should we do? Oh, we'll build a charter school. No, like give money to the existing schools. Like I think one thing that's tough is some of these Bridgeport schools, like pre-pandemic, you could go into many of Bridgeport elementary schools. My mom would work she worked in an after school program, and she would go to different Bridgeport elementary schools. The amount of time she would come home and she'd say, I went into the bathroom and there was no soap in the bathroom. that is horrible for elementary school children. Like I worked with elementary school children for quite a few, many times I worked with elementary school children. They don't need help being germy. So taking away soap from them, it's like that's inhumane. Like you're gonna get these kids sick. And it's just on a general level, it's just not hygienic. And it's like these schools, like the achievement gap, like uh it's there's layers for the reasonings why these things exist, and it's like quality of school, like books that they have, like just the quality, like the actual physical conditions of the buildings, like those are huge things. Like some of the schools in Bridgeport, the tiles of the school are asbestos. How can this be going on? Like, and you expect kids to be learning when you have them working in school buildings that were built in the 20s and haven't been updated. It's ridiculous.
Yeah, and with lack of funding and from the National School Lunch Program and just in general, and state funding for our Bridgeport schools and lower income community schools, you have lower funding and poor quality food, which directly impacts their ability to concentrate and absorb the knowledge. No pun intended, because anyway, absorb the knowledge and be able to actually perform adequately and close that achievement gap to get more funding, because you have to perform well to get funding in the first place. Like, it's small things that might impact them, or providing a breakfast program so that they're starting off their day strong and you know that they're taken care of and can now focus on learning.
Yeah, exactly.
So, wrapping up, do you have any advice to anyone who's looking into activism or looking just to learn more about food justice or GVI or anything like that?
I think my advice would be to sign up for. I think one great way to learn more is to sign up for some newsletters. Um, the Bridgeport, I don't know if it's the Bridgeport or Central Connecticut DSA, but they have a good newsletter. GVI, we have a mail blast. There's I don't know if Make the Road, but I know Soul Fire Farm has a newsletter. That's a great way to learn about volunteer opportunities. Um, it's before I worked for GVI, I felt like it was like impossible to find volunteer opportunities nearby me. So one advice would be, if you're not having any luck, just keep trying. You'll eventually find something. Always reach out to people at organizations. Pretty much every nonprofit or kind of social justice group is going to have some way you can reach out to them. Do your education. Uh, it's always great to listen to people and educate yourself, because then when you hear someone saying something wrong, with true confidence, you can smack them down. Uh, so yeah, that would be some of the things I would say.
To add to that, read Omnivore's Dilemma if you're into reading, or subscribe to hashtags like hashtag food justice or whatever on Instagram. But also take that information with a grain of salt, because sometimes they might misconstrue things. So do your research.
So, okay, I'll do the inspirational quote. This is you hear it everywhere. Like, this is normally, I find more original quotes and less boring kind of. Well, no,
that's a lie.
Yeah, okay. Anyways, but I think this one matches this conversation well. Helping one person may not change the world, but it could change the world for one person. And when I read it during this call, I looked at it more as like, I looked into it, and I think if we can just help one person, then it can completely change the trajectory of their life. and then they can help however many people. So even though we may just do one small thing and we're like, okay, that was cool, who knows what impact it had on their life, and then the impact that they can therefore have on everyone else's lives.
Yeah. Yeah, that's good, because I would try to think with food justice, it's like you're giving them a short-term solution of, helping them with the hunger that they have in the moment, and then in the long term with, introducing them to, a healthier diet possibly, or maybe helping prevent some trauma that can come from food insecurity. So yeah, it's a good quote.
Beautiful quote, Kenya.
Thank
On
you.
to promoting our social medias and websites. So you can follow, actually, let's start off with the website like I normally do. You can go to our website at www.nourishmysoul.org, or you can go to our Facebook page for Nourish My Soul, or Instagram page for Nourish My Soul, or our Instagram page for From the Ground Up, which is not how we previously stated. So it's FRM Ground Up. Yeah. And then you can donate on either one of those, like or comment, which will help the algorithm. And you can support Green Village Initiative by
You can find us on Instagram, Facebook, and YouTube, all at Green Village Initiative. You can check us out on our website, gogvi.org. If you have any questions, you can email info@gogvi.org. And yeah, that's how you can stay in touch, keep up to date with what we're doing. And we always try to promote also other organizations that are, similar minded to us and in the Bridgeport area.
you just reminded me, we also have a YouTube page.
Oh my gosh, why have
where
we?
this podcast is posted? So
Right.
that is something. I'm sure it's probably like Nourish My
Nourish My
Soul. Okay. Follow that. We haven't been promoting that this entire time. So that's
There you go.
Ooh,
Yeah.
yikes. Oh well. You win some, you lose some.
Well, thank you, Alex, so much for coming on and talking. Did you guys hear that? Sorry. Like my room, the people above me are so loud. This was very informational. I really want to look into more collaborations possibly between the youth programs and stuff like that. But yeah, thank you so much.
Thank you so much for having me. This was
Yeah.
great.
Yeah.
Ditto. Peace out, Girl
Happy
Scouts.
Thursday, everyone. See you next week.